Welcome to the Interpreting Wine Hospitality podcast. I am, of course, your host and podcast founder, Lawrence Francis. Welcoming you to this, my London Mezcal Week series. The series features brand ambassadors, authors, bar owners, and producers, and is the most comprehensive coverage I've ever given to a drinks category. And I think given the important time we're at in the evolution of Mezcal, covers lots of the issues as well as lots of the great taste to be found within. So here we go, today's episode of the London Mezcal Week series. Today's episode of the London Mezcal Week special features Agave Ambassador Gabi Moncada. Hailing from Mexico, we hear the story of her transition into the hospitality scene in London, where she now works for specialty brands. We get the inside story of each of the 5 brands that she represents. And we talk about how Mezcal is being enjoyed in various markets. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Gabriela Moncada. I am originally from Mexico. I'm actually from a city called Guadalajara. Guadalajara is the second biggest city of Mexico. And how did I actually came to London to live? Well, it is a long story, but basically I finished school and my parents bought me a ticket to come and visit my sister who was living in London. While over here, I started working in the hospitality business and I love it. Then went back to Mexico. And while I was in Mexico, there was something. London was calling me back. And after a couple of years, I saved enough money to pay a ticket. And I came to live in London. A couple of weeks after, I met a person who now is my lovely husband. And after a year, we got married. We're still working in the bar industry. And I worked for about over 10 years in London bars. London restaurants, but particularly very good cocktail bars. I met lovely people, right now the main people in the bar industry as well. And having said that, well, obviously, you go to trainings, you get to meet a lot of people, but particularly you get to meet new brands coming to the market, new brands to the UK market more than anything, and they were Mexican brands. And I was so driven to go and meet the people and everything. And eventually one day, this is very funny, that I stopped working in a bar. I was somehow or either tired or I need a break. So I left the job. And a week or two after, a very big brand of tequila called me to be part of their team and to be the educational sort of person. And I said, perfect. So what better thing to do than actually kind of share the stories of Mexico and agave. And I worked for them for about a year and a half. Eventually I have a sabbatic year after. I didn't really know what to do and everything. So I stopped working for a little bit, keep working in the hospitality, as my husband and myself have a consultancy company. So we keep traveling and meeting people. And again, somehow hospitality industry became part of my life. So everybody that I know in London is from hospitality. Having said that, eventually after a few months, in October, I started working as a consultancy as well, but this time for a beautiful company called Specialty Brands. It is based in London. It covers the whole of the UK. And it's a beautiful company who basically hired me to again talk about the brands, talk about Mexico. There are 5 beautiful brands, small and very diverse, very different as well. They all have something that it will catch your attention definitely. One is called Tequila Tapatío, Tequila Don Fulano, Derrumbes, Mezcal, Ilegal Mezcal, and La Venenosa Raicilla. And nothing since 4 years I started working for that company. I love it. And now, this is what I do. I represent them, and my title is actually Agave Ambassador, the coolest title ever.
I got to say, I think you did a fantastic job of, covering a lot of time and, I'm sure a lot of experiences and in a relatively short story there and, bringing us sort of bang up to date. What's really drawing my attention, I guess, and I think you've got an interesting perspective working with specialty and having these 5 brands kind of in your toolkit, as it were, when you're going out and talking and educating the on-trade, really, isn't it, in the UK? I'm curious just to, maybe do a little bit of a deep dive into that portfolio and talk about the ways in which the 5 brands kind of represent one another. Okay. And in a sense, I guess through that, I think it will help to sort of demonstrate some of the versatility that I believe there is within the category.
Okay, certainly. So first of all, I'd like to speak about Tequila Tapatio. Tequila Tapatio is a very well-respected brand. Now they produce 5 brands. They are based in the highlands of Jalisco. It is a family-owned company. It is the 3rd generation of the Camarena family producing this beautiful tequila from the highlands. They based in Arandas town in Jalisco, and they produce a beautiful style of tequila, very old school. I always like to explain a little bit about this brand. One of the best ways that in my head represents this brand is I was given a book by Carlos Camarena, which is owner and producer of Tequila Tapatio, and this book was written around 1990s, and that book is talking about several different distilleries from Jalisco, but particularly from the highlands. And one of the writer actually explains La Alteña, which is where Tequila Tapatio is produced, and he's explaining that even though they produce an amazing tequila, they will never go international, they will never grow big. And the main reason for that is because they employ so many people and because they haven't adapted to the new technology. And in my opinion, this is exactly why Tequila Tapatio is so respected, because it's not only about being the 3rd owner of generation of tequila producers, is also the 3rd generation of people working in there. So the grandparents of the jimadores or other people working within the company are still working there, this is an amazing. Again, about the liquid is so respectful, everybody adore it. It is one of the most loved tequilas as well. They produce amazing tequilas. I'm sure that maybe you have heard. It's also the producer of Tequila Ocho. Also produced another one that I'm not sure if it's still around. It's called Excelia. It went particularly to the French market. They do El Tesoro de Don Felipe, which is another amazing style of tequila, and another new one called Villalobos. But the main character here is Tequila Tapatio, which is again amazing, embraced by the bartenders, and is so the pure essence of tequila and the ground. Then we have Don Fulano Tequila. Don Fulano is also family owned. They were a family who were only growing agaves and selling it to big distilleries. Eventually, one distillery tried to put the price down of the agave, and they were the biggest producers of agaves or growers of agaves. They knew that if they allowed this company to put the price down, then everybody else, who particularly small companies, will have to put the price down too. So they decided not to sell those agaves, and instead they heard about one distillery that was on sale. This family from Don Fulano is the Fonseca family. They are from Atotonilco, which is also the highlands of Jalisco. And they heard about this distillery being sold. It was already built. And this distillery was in Tequila Town. So nothing, they actually bought the distillery and started to produce tequila for other people. These other people who trust the family. They began making tequilas for other people, winning several awards, and eventually they decided to begin making their own tequilas. They didn't really have a name to put it. They're very humble people. They're adorable as well. And they said, we are no one to put our name in the bottle. So that's why they call it Don Fulano, which is Mr. No One or Sir Nobody. It's also in honor to all the people that works behind the scenes that we don't know. Then I have the beautiful other brand called Ilegal. It's a very rock and roll, very against the law, and it's a very cool story. Hopefully you get the chance to check it out. You find it in Ilegal Mezcal website. And it's basically this very cool guy called John Rexer from New York State, who one day decided to go and travel all around Latin America. But he fell in love with Mexico and stayed there. Eventually, so many things happened that then one day he decided to go and just travel a little bit southern, and he arrived to Guatemala, mainly because his visa was expiring, so he just needed to renew the Mexican visa. In Guatemala, he had the opportunity to open a bar by coincidence, all accidents, of course. And that bar was a mezcal bar, or that was his idea. He called the suppliers of Guatemala. Guatemala don't have any mezcales, don't export or didn't export any mezcal at that point. So he started smuggling mezcal out of Mexico to Guatemala. The story is super cool. Again, if you have the chance, I'm going to make it very cute and simple and smaller because it's much larger and a bit hardcore sometimes, I think. But he started to smuggle mezcal out of Mexico to Guatemala. One day he even found a priest collar in a second-hand market, and he wore it and he crossed the border saying that he was a priest, just kind of visiting friends. And he got his bag inspection, and they noticed he has a lot of mezcal. They just allowed him get in thinking like, oh, this father is going to have a lot of a very big party or something. And long story short is then eventually he began making money out of the bar, which was Speakeasy's Café No Sé in Guatemala, and obviously the smuggling of mezcal. And then he decided to produce his own brand. He approached a family in Oaxaca. The family was already making very good mezcales. And John Rexer just said, can we do something together? They said yes. So that's when then they began making the mezcal for him at the style that he wanted. So it's a very elegant style of mezcal as well. And then when they put it in the bottle, they asked, John, how do you want to call your mezcal? He said, well, it was illegal for such a long time, then let's keep it illegal. It's a very cool story. Then we have the Rumbes. The Rumbes is really in my heart. I love this brand. It is a collection of mezcales from different states of Mexico. As you might know, there are 9 states that are allowed to produce or call it mezcal. There are many other states that produce mezcal, but they are not in the DO of mezcal, so they have to call themselves spirits of agave. Well, in this case, the Rumbes is a collection of mezcales from where we have the denomination of origin. And we have 6 mezcales, one from Oaxaca state, and then another one from Michoacán, from Durango, Zacatecas, San Luis Potosí, and Tamaulipas. And they are all different producers, ways of making, pot stills, yeast, agave, terroir, climate, everything. And it makes such a fantastic styles of mezcal, and is clearly the essence of when we actually explain about tequila being the most biodiverse spirit in the world. If you get the chance to try it, you love it. It is a collection of mezcales made by different people, but the brand is made by 2 guys called Sergio and Esteban. Sergio also produces Don Fulano tequila, and Esteban also La Venenosa, which I'll explain in a second. And what they do is basically they go traveling around Mexico, meet the producers of the mezcales, and then, well, buy mezcal from them. If you notice in each bottle will actually tell you who made it, how many bottles, which agave, what process, everything. We are not hiding anything. Apart that is part of the law to explain everything. We wanted to be clear. We are not the producers of the mezcal. You can go and search and go and find these people. We don't want them also to make more mezcal for us. We want them to sell us wherever they can sell us after they have sold to their own communities and families. Why? Because we don't want them to change the recipe for us. We don't want them to make more. We want to drink what they drink. So it is a very cool style of mezcales, because what you're drinking is a really ancient style of mezcal that is untouched. We don't even add any water after the distillation. We take them, once they call us and we go pick up the mezcal, we take it to Guadalajara, where we have a laboratory. And that laboratory is simply a place where we obviously have to filter for any particles of dust. We get the samples to the CRM, which state from Council Regulatory of Mezcal. Once we get the green light, we put it in the bottle and sell it. So the ABV will change slightly every time, though. So every time you have to check the bottle. This is different than the other one. And finally, we look after this other beautiful brand that also I adore, is Raicilla, La Venenosa. Basically, what is Raicilla? Is a mezcal by definition, but not by denomination. Meaning that we are not part of the denomination of origin of mezcal, but after Oaxaca, Jalisco owns the biggest variety of agaves. And what is with that is that we are not allowed to call mezcal to what we do there, but we do make mezcales. Sadly, we did have to find other ways how to approach people or consumers feel a bit much more, let's say, secure or let's say protected while consuming this this category. The reason is, let's be honest, you're gonna go to a shop and you see a mezcal, you see a tequila, and then you see a spirit of agave or distillate of agave, aguardiente de agave, whatever you want to call it. If you don't see the words tequila or mezcal, somehow you feel unprotected. You feel like, what the hell is that? While being already a denomination of origin, you will feel that they're following certain rules, and that's what we did. They check in records that in the 1600s we escaped paying taxes to the royalty in Spain, but by saying that we were making a root medicine called Raicilla. So even though people were not sure and they were thinking, what are you doing there? And people start to say, oh, we're making Raicilla. Then they allowed us to, oh, okay, so you don't have to pay taxes. So we didn't pay taxes because of that. Other people said, yes, I'm making mezcal. But the story ends that a few years back, some people decided to use Raicilla as a denomination of origin. And only on the 28th of June 2019, we got the approval, and now we got the denomination of origin of Raicilla. But it is a mezcal made in Jalisco, in 16 municipalities.
It's fantastic to hear you talking about all five, because I kind of imagined, the way that you led in, really, that there would be fantastic stories, and I think that then the story tells you the differences between them, doesn't it? It gives you a sense of where they're from, and I think it's that much more meaningful to know the history, because that's something that I'm very much picking up, is that this is a category where there is a lot of history, and there is a lot of provenance as well. There is a lot of I think communication that comes through on the bottle that shows you where it's from, how it was produced, and I think that's almost learning now as I am about the Raicilla. I think that then for the people that know the story and know the origin, seeing that on the bottle gives them a greater insight into what this is going to taste like and the root of that exact spirit. So that's super interesting. And I think probably last question, because I know you've got a busy day ahead of you pouring here at London Mezcal Week. I'm just curious, just not really a specific question, but just I just want to get a little bit of a sense. I think you're in a really interesting position. You know what's happening in Mexico. You know intimately about the production and the consumption as well. Indeed, from what you've just said in terms of the stories. Just give us a little bit of a sense of how are these drinks being enjoyed. I guess maybe first through the bartender and the people that you're seeing, and maybe what are they telling you about their customers and the people that are coming into their bars.
Ay, caramba. Okay, so a wide perspective. I think people are well, in Mexico, people drink it just straight up. But right now we are in the era of cocktails again. And thankfully we are in the era also of going back to classics. And I've seen a series of different styles of cocktails made or remade as a twist. If this is a question, hopefully I'm answering as well the question. I have tried Hemingway daiquiri with mezcal. I have tried obviously from the Negroni and Margarita to Manhattans and Old Fashions. I have tried martinis and Clover Clubs. All a range of beautiful classic drinks made with either gin or rum or whiskey, and you can make an amazing different style of of drinks, but people in Mexico particularly will drink it straight up, definitely, like other spirits like tequila. So in London is obviously, I'll see it in a very romantic way, because London is embracing it. I think the whole of the UK, but London is particularly embracing, in my opinion, also the sense of trying to help at the end of the chain. And with that, I mean that people really, when they hear the stories, where the money goes and who is producing it, and all the heart and the passion and the effort that sometimes a brand will share, or even to know that it's an Asian spirit, to know that we didn't touch them. People are embracing it, and it's lovely. Also, as a perspective, as a consumer, it's very cool to know that in the old school times, let's say 10, 15 years ago, when I arrived to London, you see one tequila, one mezcal maybe, you see a grappa, a pisco, cachaça, and now 10, 15 years after, now you see 5 tequilas, 2 or 3 mezcales, and you still see 1 grappa, 1 cachaça, and 1 pisco, meaning that we are definitely growing, and we growing smartly. There are so many things happening around. Obviously, it's getting expensive, but I think our job as an ambassadors is very useful for the brands and for the categories, because we are helping each other. With that, I mean that people need to start recognizing, why do they pay much more for a mezcal than for a gin? And this is a question that we all have to put in our heads. Why do people are actually paying more for a gin than for a mezcal, when a gin maybe is produced here around the corner, and gin was a grain spirit that could be produced in 1 month, when an agave spirit will be produced in at least 8 years after.
Thank you so much, Gabi. An absolute pleasure to sit down with you. I'm super happy to share the passion that you have for each of these 5 brands, and great to hear the story behind each of them. I've left below the link to each of the brands on the Specialty Brands website, as well as the link to Gabi's profile there. If you're loving the London Mezcal Week series so far, please do head over to interpretingwine.com/review, where you can leave a review for the podcast, thus helping this content reach many more people. Next time on the London Mezcal Week special, in episode 323, I sit down with agave expert Tom Bartram. See you then.